Rabbi Yitzchak Alfasi was born in 1013 in the Beni Hamad fort, Algeria, and studied in Tunisia. He is, probably, the most notable Talmudic commentator. Not sure who we're talking about? Ever heard of the Rif? The back pages of every Gemara nowadays are dedicated to his commentary. He wrote in the same language and structure as the Talmud, making it easier to learn one from the other, but difficult sometimes to distinguish when you're flipping through. And yes, he's in every Gemara, meaning he's accepted by Ashkenazim, Sephardim, Mizrahim, everyone. He is, probably, the only scholar that everyone agrees on, and to this day he's considered the number one commentator on the Talmud. You see, the Rif was one of the last in the Gaonic period. It was during this time that people started losing interest in Old Aramaic, but the Gaonim did not want to allow shortcuts. They were afraid that any shortening of the Talmud or translation would mean people were not studying the original. Then came the Rif. What he essentially did was shorten the Talmud by about 3/4, keeping the language and style of the original. He did this by taking all the major points of the Jerusalem Talmud, Babylonian Talmud, Gaonim, and Halachic Responsa, and mashed them into what became known as the Talmud Katan, or Mini Talmud. Of course, some people did use it as a shortcut, and others used it as a springboard. Either way, they were getting the essence, language, style, and halacha, and almost nobody complained. In the years that followed, at the age of 75, the Rif kept his moral ground and passed a negative judgment against a rich and powerful man. Understandably, the man was upset and complained to the king. Rabbi Alfasi had no choice but to leave and head to Spain. There, he was appointed Rosh Yeshiva of Lucena, an all-Jewish city. Imagine, it was an all-Jewish city in Spain. In Lucena, he raised a whole generation of Talmidei Chachamim, such as Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, Yosef ibn Migash, and Avraham ibn Ezra. Let's just say he was a big shot. But the Rif didn't let it get to his head. Before he passed away, he was asked to appoint a successor in the yeshiva. He had a son who was maybe 70 and seemed like the natural choice, but the Rif refused. Instead, he appointed Yosef ibn Migash, who was just 28. His students were confused. Why, they asked. He replied, "My son is smart, but there are many smart people. Yosef ibn Migash is both smart and wise, and that is rare." So Ibn Migash took over, and among his students was Maimon. Does that name ring a bell? Yes, he was the father of Rabbi Moshe, better known as the Rambam. So with his passing at the age of 90 in the year 1103, the Rif left a legacy that we still use today. To this day, we can open a Talmud and see the North African greatness that the Rif left behind.